An entitled Karen is convinced that my house is harboring prostitutes and threatens to report us to the police and the real owner of the property. Little does she know I own the house. Here's how it went down. Some background information before we get started. My stepsister and her girlfriend rent a house that my boyfriend and I purchased, rehabilitated, and remodeled in a college town in central Missouri. They are on the lease with some fellow students at the local college. So, in a 3-bedroom house, there are 5 girls. My boyfriend is over often because he takes care of a lot of the gardening and the tasks that require some heavy lifting. He had warned me that the next-door neighbor is a bit nosy and seems to be the old biddy type, despite not being elderly. Just for those keeping track, that is 5 girls and 1 guy that routinely comes over. I haven't really been to the house since we finished it until this last weekend. Someone had suggested that some small garden boxes along the side of the house would be nice so they can plant some herbs and maybe some vegetables come springtime. And I'm all about that since I'm the green thumb of the couple. I went over and built some terraced garden boxes along the side of the house, each about 4 foot by 3 foot. So each bed was about 3.5 foot wide by 3/4 of a foot. Why am I doing this right before winter? Basically so we can make sure that the boxes are draining properly without losing too much soil from the box due to runoff. I'm just finishing up when the old biddy makes her appearance. The conversation starts off rather normal, even though I can tell she's digging for some gossip to be able to tell the women's group at church. Then she beckons me closer and says, "I know you're just the hired help and are just here to do a job, but do you know what this house is?" "No, what is this house?" I ask. "Well, I don't want to get involved, but I figured I ought to warn a pretty young thing like yourself that this is a brothel," Karen says, her voice lowered conspiratorially. I ask her what proof she has of this, and she explains that she saw a man here about a week or so ago. We collect rent on the 5th, and he was telling the girls that they had to pay him. She then goes on to explain that when he went to leave, my stepsister and her girlfriend both gave him a long hug. I ask her if she has anything else, and she says that she sees a mixture of people coming in and out, mostly men coming and staying for a couple hours or so before leaving, which really ain't that unusual for 5 college students to have friends and classmates to come over for study groups and or group projects. My mistake is I ended up rolling my eyes and clearly appearing uninterested in listening to her further because she started to huff. "I see you ain't concerned about those girls and their welfare. I bet that pimp has you in on it too. Well, I know the owner of this property and I'm going to call them and report what's going on to them." This is where I knew I had her because my boyfriend and I own the place outright, and I don't know her from Eve and she clearly didn't know my boyfriend from Adam. "Go ahead, Karen. Why don't you call them over?" I say to her. "Oh, well, they live in St. Louis, and you know what that means," Karen says. No, I really don't know what that means." I push, trying to figure out if she innocently just means that it would take the owner too long to get here, or that the owner doesn't care. But St. Louis and or Kansas City have also become a bit of a dog whistle for black in this part of the state, and that is exactly what I think she means by it. Almost confirmed by her stuttering over her words and repeating, "You've got to know what that means. You shouldn't have said nothing. You are exactly what is wrong with the state. Now I need you to take your bigoted ass back inside and leave us all alone. And if I hear about you harassing them that live or work here, the police here hain't like and in a hurry to snatch you right up," I said. This did have the desired effect of making her go away. What I failed to foresee in my anger was Karen calling the police and claiming that I threatened her. My stepsister came out shortly after Karen went away and was talking to me about her, and some of the rude comments that had been sent to her and her girlfriend's way from "bless your hearts" and "y'all need Jesus" to "you whores are going to hell." It was about this time that the police roll up and start asking me questions about what was going on with Karen, as they had gotten a report that something matching my description had threatened her. So I relate to the officer more or less what happened above. At this time, my stepsister asks the officer if she can show him something on her phone. The officer says yes, and my stepsister proceeds to show him a video with audio of the conversation, and this lovely 6-foot-plus tall officer that is also African American also picks up on the unspoken meaning of St. Louis owners, and here it is clear that it gets him hackled up. My sister then proceeds to show him videos of Karen's harassment towards her and her girlfriend. He gives a clipped, "Y'all can go inside, but don't go far. I'll be right back." Us all being biddies in training, immediately gather around the inside window that allows us to overlook her front door. He marched up to her door and gave it 3 thudding clubs against it before waiting for Karen to come out. Unfortunately, he did not have the conversation on the porch with her. But I will say this, even with all of her doors and windows closed, we could hear the officer's raised voice. He returned about 5 minutes later and told us that he would warn her to leave us alone and stop harassing us. Before leaving, he gave my stepsister his card and said that if she started up again, to give him a call and he will get us a no-contact order and charge her for harassment. It's been 4 days and Karen won't as much as look in the direction of anyone in the house. Hopefully, this is the end of it. I can't imagine dealing with someone like that. I'm so glad you were able to get the police involved, and hopefully this will be the end of it. And if not, at least you have some help from the law on your side. Hopefully, Karen sees that she can't keep doing what she's doing and leave you alone. A stalker Karen has been showing up at places I go for years. After 4 years, justice was served, but after discovering who she was, my feelings changed. Here's the story. Summer 2017, I was working at a pharmacy. I had been there for 4 years. A new staff pharmacist around my age, 28 at the time, was hired. He seemed odd, but I was nice to him because everyone else was rude to him immediately and I felt bad. He asked me way too many questions. Some I answered and others crossed boundaries. Questions about ex-boyfriends. Fast forward a month. He said that he was moving. He lived on the east side of my city and he said that he was moving to the west side, where I live. He said that he actually found a house near the intersection of where I live. I asked him what street and he wouldn't tell me. He also said that the owner will live there for a few months, so I forgot about it. Fast forward a few months later, and my mom and stepdad told me they met our new neighbor. Our house is one house away from the intersecting street. This house is on the intersecting street, so we are one house away, but the backyards connect. My mom said he seemed like a really nice young man. The next time I worked with him, I asked if that was him, and he said no. I let it go for a little bit. Then another time, he started asking me questions, describing my backyard and asking if my street name started with the letter that it did. So he admitted it was him. I asked him how he knew it was my house. He said he saw me in the backyard. He decided not to say anything to me. The next few months were weird. I was still friendly with him as a coworker, but he crossed some boundaries. He knew my birthday was coming up. My birthday and address are in the pharmacy database, and my brother was asking for ideas for what to get for me. I wanted a certain phone case, so I was browsing on my phone to send my brother links to the ones I wanted. He would always look over my shoulder when I was on my phone. He saw the type of phone case, he got me the phone case and a $150 preloaded Visa gift card. I told him, in a very professional manner, that I felt the gift was inappropriate and probably against company policy. I walked over to his mailbox while I was at work to return it. He kept putting it back in my mailbox with messages of begging me to accept it because I make him so happy. I ended up giving it away. Not much longer after that, I took my coworker, not him, a female, to the zoo. I had some of it on my Snapchat history. He kept messaging me on Snapchat asking questions about it, and it was bothering me, so I blocked him. After that, he called my mother. He got her number from when they first met. He told her he needed to come over and talk to her. So she invited him in and they talked. I was very alarmed by this, but she thought it was endearing. I told him once again at work that he crossed boundaries, and he said that he does everything that he does because he cares about me. He didn't understand where I was coming from at all. Those were the most standout things he has done. Also, a lot of pestering about, tell me who your boyfriend is, and trying to look at pictures in my phone to figure it out. Going through coworkers' phones and reading their conversations with me, even impersonating them while I was not at work to get info. One time, he even cornered me at work and wouldn't let me leave until I told him what characteristics I look for in a guy. He also was mad at me when I got a birth control prescription filled, even though it was being used to correct hormonal problems from another birth control. I started being mean to him at work because I couldn't take it anymore. He then told me that I was treating him that way because he is a nice guy who cares about me, and that I am looking for a jerk. It became a very hostile work environment, and I left about 2 months ago. This is a side note. Other coworkers and neighbors hate him because he likes to start confrontations. He also plays he said she said with people for entertainment. The neighbors have called the police on him and think he is crazy. I haven't heard from him at all since leaving, but I saw my former coworker last week at a get-together, and she said he is trying to get her to tell him where I work now. He told her that he sees me getting into my car every morning, so he knows I have a job. I told my mom this, and she didn't take it seriously. She never believed I was in danger. I would just like to get an outside perspective. When I come home late, I run to the door, and if no one is home, I will wait to take a shower. I'm still scared. Jumping into the future by 4 years, here's an update from the OP. Hi everyone, here's an update from a post I made a few years ago about a scary neighbor. Last night I looked out the window and there were multiple police cars and an ambulance. I found out later that my neighbor married a young girl from the same country as him. She doesn't speak much English and doesn't have family here. She has been here a few months. He has seldom let her leave the house, even to go into the backyard. My other neighbors managed to catch her outdoors once or twice and managed to get her phone number. She said he has cameras all over the house and outside. Last night, he was beating on her and accusing her of cheating and the cops were called. After that, he shut off her phone service. Last night, he attacked her with a knife and my neighbors heard her screaming and they called the cops for her. She says he was trying to kill her. She was taken away by an ambulance and he was arrested. Multiple guns and knives were found in the house. I'm going to cut this post short because I'm typing this on a tablet with no keyboard and it's getting cumbersome. I'm so glad you're okay and that your neighbor was able to help you. I hope you'll be able to stay friends with your family until this is all sorted out. I'm sure it's really scary to think about going back there, but if he is dangerous enough to have attacked you with a knife, I don't think it would be safe for you to go back there by yourself. You might want to contact the local domestic violence hotline in your area and see what kind of resources they have available for people like you. They might be able to help you figure out where you can go next and give you some advice on how to best get away from him safely. Good luck. A stranger knocked on my door for 20 minutes. Last night, my 22 female, husband, 25 male, woke me up at around 11:50 to tell me that someone has been knocking on our door and ringing our apartment doorbell for about 10 minutes on and off. He woke me so I could possibly ID the person. Once I looked out our upstairs apartment window, I saw the man walking to his car in our apartment parking lot, across the street from our unit. He was wearing blue jeans and a gray t-shirt. He was a medium build, possibly 30-year-old blonde man. He wasn't covering his face or anything, but the thing is, he was carrying what looked like resistant bands or rope. He sat in his car for around 3 minutes while I was on the phone with dispatch. Then he came back to our door and knocked hard for another few minutes. Dispatch advised me that the police were on their way, and they hung up. I started videoing the vehicle. I read out the tag number and make and model and just watched as he put his car in park and reverse over and over again. Out of seemingly nowhere, he backed out of the parking lot and started rushing away, but not before the officer arrived and pulled him over. My downstairs neighbor knocked on my door and told me that he had been peering into her little children's windows and was pounding on her door as well. She said that her husband had only left 1 minute before he started knocking at her door. She said he saw her children through the window and that's why he continued knocking. Our doors are right next to one another, so he probably didn't know what door he wanted opened. He was also watching us through our upstairs windows, so I turned all the lights out and shut the blinds while I called dispatch. The police never contacted us for a statement. I've reached out to the dispatch about an update and I'm waiting to see if any action was taken. We're keeping our eyes peeled to see if he's been following us. I'm replacing my porch light bulbs with motion detectors and putting bars in our window and door tacks. My neighbors and our family are panicked, to say the least. He was outside for about 25 to 30 minutes. To the knocking man with bad intentions, let's not meet. Jumping into the future, the OP added an update. I am trained in firearm use and now live in a state where I can open carry and the background check is really quick. We are going this weekend to get a firearm. My husband will be taking some classes as he came from somewhere where owning a gun is illegal, so he's never handled one. I'm still waiting on a call from the responding officer. I have his badge number and name, so if they don't reach out to me today/tonight, he might work third shift. I'll call the substation. If they didn't do anything, I will go ahead and make a suspicious persons case for the paper trail. We had no odd encounters last night. However, while I was looking at the video I took, I remember that car. I was walking my dog at 8 p.m. a week ago for him to pee, and this car was driving really slow through the parking lot and parked a few spots down from where I was letting my dog sniff. They just sat there with the car running. When I tell you my ears started ringing and I got an awful feeling, I'm not joking. I turned around and went home, didn't give my dog the chance to pee, and shut every door and window. This man has been staking out our apartment building, me and my neighbors. I think he wanted to get in where those children are. I'll update more when I have new information. Update number 2. It's been a week since the incident. I called dispatch today because I never received a follow-up from the responding officer. A sergeant from the PD called me back to give me more information. He said that they pulled over the man, ran him to make sure there were no warrants, and asked him what he was doing. He told the officer he was meeting up with an acquaintance. The officer let him go with no further questions. Not only that, the responding officer is also a sergeant. I about lost my mind. The sergeant I spoke to today stated that he should have been looked into more. It was obviously an attempt at burglary, sexually motivated and/or with intent to commit a felony. The responding officer will call me tonight when he gets on duty. I'm livid, honestly. Zero due diligence for this case. But there's not even a case. No case number, just a documented police contact. I'll give more info when I have it. Final update. The officer finally called me. Here's how the conversation went. Hello? I answered groggily. It was well past midnight. Hello, miss. I was told you have some questions about an incident a few nights ago. Yes, about Thursday. I wanted to know what that man told you he was doing. You know, he was looking in windows and carrying potential restraints. I'm not sure if that was relayed to you. I stopped him, ran his tags, and he told me that he was meeting up with a guy from a dating app. He seemed forthcoming and open with his motive for being there. He was meeting up with someone by looking in windows, knocking on 2 different doors for 20 minutes? I was shocked, and still not fully awake. Like I said, he seemed forthcoming and honest with me. So was Jeffrey Dahmer was the first thing that came to mind. With resistant bands? Like workout bands? He had lots of belongings in his car, so he probably just had them in there. Right, but bringing them to a hookup? Knocking on multiple doors? He saw the little girls through the window. He waited until my neighbor's husband left until knocking. That's on tape, officer. I checked in with the apartment management after the incident. Well, I'm familiar with this individual, and I've been doing drive-thrus of your complex to make sure he doesn't come back. I haven't seen anything. If you don't have any more questions, I'll let you go, ma'am. Doesn't make sense to me, but thank you. Goodbye. And I hung up. I don't have much to say. I just feel icky about that conversation. Nothing new has come of the situation. I haven't seen the man or the car. My mind is blown at the lack of follow-up or due diligence. I live in a suburb. It's not a busy one either. The PD has a small jurisdiction. Guess I'll have to protect myself. You're right that this seems strange and not something you would expect from a police officer. If I were you, I would contact the police department directly and ask to speak to a supervisor or the chief of police. I would write down everything that happened in your phone call and make sure you have it on hand when you talk to them. Maybe bring it up with a friend or family member first and see what they think about it all before contacting them. If you enjoyed these stories, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell. Check out the other videos on your screen right now, otherwise, you're definitely the jerk.